You're a top 1% surgeon doing these awesome cases, changing people's lives. How has your focus evolved over the years?
Well, my dad his advice was to try to be your own boss, because he knew when you're an underling, it's never a good place to be.
All dentists know the common career paths, but how do you know which path is right for you, and are there other options out there?
On this podcast, we will be chatting with industry experts. We want to bring you the knowledge and resources you need to take your career to the next level and break down those industry secrets interview by interview.
We are here to ignite a revolution in the dental landscape
and help you, the dentist, build the career you have always wanted.
I'm Dr. Cassidy Reeder.
I'm Carter Frank.
And welcome to the Revolution Dentistry Podcast.
I'm Carter Frank, here with Cassidy Reeder. This is the Revolution Dentistry Podcast, where we help you with strategies to build lasting success for you and your family. Today we have a very special guest, Dr. Bruce Smoler. Dr. Bruce Smoler is a dedicated dentist from Detroit with over 35 years of experience in dental care. He's the founder of Smoler Smiles Family and Implant Dentistry located in Westland, Michigan, and has a passion for making dental implants accessible and effective for his patients. Dr. Smoler graduated from the Northwestern University Dental School after an accelerated 3 years at the University of Michigan. His commitment to learning is clear with over 6,000 hours of CE under his belt. He holds fellowships in both the Academy of General Dentistry as well as the International Congress of Oral Implantologists. He has performed more than 1,000 robotically placed implants in addition to the over 10,000 he has placed in his career. Dr. Smoler has profound understanding of the Yaw-on-X procedure after having personally placed about 1,000 arches in his career, including zygomatic and pterygoid implant placements. Beyond his practice, Dr. Smoler presently holds numerous KOLs, key opinion leaders, status in a number of manufacturers for 3D printing, implant manufacturing, and Yomi by Neosys. He routinely gives back with lecturing and mentoring across the country. His innovative approach has even been featured in Top Doctor magazine. Let's dive into his journey and insights on dental implants.
I love it. I love it. Dr. Smoler,
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for joining us today.
Not a problem at all. Glad to help spread the word.
Of course.
Yeah, years ago, there's someone named Johnny Appleseed who used to go around spreading apple seeds to grow apples. So, let's call me the dental implant Johnny Appleseed.
Yeah, Johnny Implant Seed.
Yeah, Johnny Implant Seed. Yeah.
I love it.
Johnny Robotic.
Okay.
Seed,
Yeah, we can't wait to talk about that.
He'll never miss the proper place to put his seat. Well.
Hey, no.
Something like that.
Something like that. No, I get it. I used a Yomi actually back in October. I went to the Closing Institute by Progressive,
right,
and they had one of those stations there, the Yomi robots.
Absolutely.
And they had me try it out. Blew my mind.
Yeah, it was right near your guys' booths.
Yes, it blew my mind.
Yeah, exactly.
It was so much fun. So, I think it's pretty obvious by your qualifications here that you're in the top 1%. All right. You're a top 1% surgeon out here doing these awesome cases, changing people's lives and spreading the good word, right, of implants. And so, I just want to know a little bit more about your background. We all do. So what initially drew you to specialize in implant dentistry, and how has your focus evolved over the years?
So it's interesting. I'm a second generation dentist, and people think, oh, did your dad force you to go into dentistry? Well, my dad his advice was to try to be your own boss, because he knew from his time in the Army that when you're an underling, it's never a good place to be. So he was very adamant about trying to be your own boss. And my mom, on the other hand, really was thinking medicine, different things like that. So dentistry was very appealing to me because I thought that it was easier track as far as time requirements, as far as my buddies that were going into medicine. And it was something that I grew up with. So it was really nice because it was an extension of what my father did, his principles as far as how to treat people. in the sense that they're there for a reason. They're there for help. So underlying all my activities, all the things I do in the business day to day, it's really how can we help? And that's our motto. That's what we live and breathe. That's our reason for living. It's how do we help? And it really makes it easy because not everybody wants to be helped. So it's not on us to try to convince someone to be helped. It really is a case where sometimes we care more about a patient's health and well-being than they do.
Right.
And that's okay. It's still a free country for the time being. And so what happens is, well, some people say it's getting more free, but we're going to keep this above board. We don't want to have more problems than we've already started.
Right.
Let's see. So one of the things that happens is I really enjoyed surgery even from the time in dental school at Northwestern Dental School, 4 years year round. Incidentally, when I was in Chicago, that's where I met Miss Wright. It wasn't until 5 years later when I was married to her, I found out her first name was always Wright. So
I think that's my wife's first name too.
Oh, yeah. You know, there's a lot of them out there, let me tell you. None of our spouses watch this, right?
No,
we're safe. Is this a safe space?
This is a safe space, yes.
Okay, good. Just want to make that, okay, safe space.
Safe space, yeah.
So I was going to specialize in perio, and my father said to me, the only thing that he ever said to me about my career path was, Bruce, most of the best specialists that he knew started out as a GP to at least understand the general dentistry side of things before just limiting their practice to, let's say, periodontics. So I took a year deferment, and that 1 year turned into 2 because I really enjoyed private practice. The idea of going back to Chicago and learning and just getting inundated. I mean, it was like sort of like what I was meant to be. And why stop it? So a good friend of mine who was an early mentor said, Bruce, the specialists were set up by the ADA, American Dental Association, to really only handle the toughest 10% of the cases, let's say. And arguably, most of the specialists are only in metropolitan areas. Most of the dentists have to learn more to help more. So he said, Bruce, if you take enough courses and training, you can keep things more in-house. You won't get bored. And really what it comes down to is being able to help more people live better.
Right.
So that sort of was my motto. I was taking courses. I was very fortunate in the sense that I had my father who was working with me. We had 2 locations. We had an associate for a while. And it really afforded me the time and ability to continue on my growth as far as my education. So after the year, I told them no. After 2 years, I said, really no. After 4 years, I go, who are you guys again? So it was interesting because when you really look at the parallels between medicine and dentistry, sure, you've got your typical 4 years undergrad training, and then you go through medical school, 4 years for medicine, 2 years as far as didactics and dentistry. Medicine, my colleagues who are physicians went on to residencies, fellowships, programs where they were working many years side by side with their colleagues in a medical setting after medical school. Well, in dental school, what happens is that after your 4 years, they kick you out. They say, okay, you're a dentist now.
Oh, yeah.
So truly, the clinical training, able to really excel at learning your craft, really is deficient. And that's why I think in dentistry, it's required to really be focused, be a lifelong learner, like some of my mentors, so that you'll be able to help more people understand how to be able to do things better to a higher level and a higher degree. So my actual first pursuits was in orthodontics, doing straight wire. That led me into TMJ. So I was doing a lot of mini residencies in TMJ. And at that time, I had a colleague who would come in to do the surgeries in our office for implants, and then I would do the restorative. So my wife thought that was an ideal thing because then you're not cutting people, there's less risk. She was all about risk mitigation. Well, I soon found out that the really difficult TMJ cases had a large psychiatric component, affectionately known as, man, they be crazy. So what happens is why go through all that time and effort with people who will name their disease entity? Oh, my fibro is acting up. Oh, my TMJ is. They've
Mm,
actually adopted that disease as a part of themselves.
mm-hmm.
So compare that to implant dentistry, where you cut someone, they heal sooner or later.
Right.
And, as they say, bleeding, all bleeding stops eventually.
Yeah.
So
Has to.
what'll happen is it really was excellent being able to start my career back in the late 90s, mid 90s, to take courses and training for starting off with Mish, both his prosthetic program, his surgical training that led me to a number of other ones like Mike Pico's down in Florida, the coastal jaw
Mm,
surgery. And it was really nice because it was an evolution, learning how things adapted to the changing technology.
mm-hmm.
So the technology we had back in the 90s, turn of the century, was a lot different than what we have today.
Sure.
So it was really interesting as far as learning as much as you could, basically 30 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
applying it over time, but as still a general dentist at heart.
Right.
And it was probably about 15 years ago that I really started focusing in on changing who I was.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't wake up one night and say, okay, now I'm an implantologist, but it's a planned out, methodical way, taking courses, taking training, really seeing if there's any gaps in my training to allow me to help more people in all the different situations. So your
Mm-hmm.
question was, it sort of was by default. I figured out what I really didn't want,
Mm-hmm.
and what was left was what I really enjoy, which is surgical reconstruction with dental implants.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that story.
Yeah. So, as somebody who's placed over 10,000 dental implants, can you walk us through the process and what makes your approach unique, and maybe dig into some of the robotic techniques that you use?
So it's really interesting as far as how we're able to do what we do. First and foremost, it's a person in front of you. I can't tell you how many times patients come to us. They've told us that there was a quote that they went to. I don't want to say about some of these other places out there.
Mm-hmm.
There's a place where the choice is not always clear.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Okay. Sorry. I was a little slow on that one.
that's okay. That's okay. And
That
what
joke flew over my
happens
head. I
is
get it now.
patients are searching. And what they're searching for is a place that they like. People know that they have to spend money, whether it's $10,000, $50,000 or more, and they typically want to at least go to a place, ideally they like, ideally they feel that they're going to be taken care of, and at the very least, not upset them. So the process starts with a team approach where each and every one of us are empowered to help change lives. So it's
Mhm.
part of our motto. On the side of our building, it says where dental magic happens.
Mhm.
So your belief has to be there. Your principles have to be grounded, not just in the doctor, but everyone on the team. Because anytime you have someone who's scared, they're nervous, talking about the patient,
Mhm.
what ends up happening is they're looking for a reason to turn around and run out of the office.
Okay.
So their radar is at heightened levels to see and hear and just get that vibe. So, you know, all those seminars, all those courses that pop up in our inbox, how to close more cases, the 3 things you need to say, the stuff to get that patient to move forward.
Mhm.
Truth be told, it starts way before I walk in the room.
Mhm.
And so the process that we have is really approaching each individual patient just as that, as an individual, trying to understand their psychology, trying to understand what their motivation is, what their fear factors are. Okay, they went to 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 other offices. So Mrs. Jones, you've been to 7 other places.
Mhm.
What have they haven't done that we need to do?
Mhm.
And they're searching for a reason. So we really have to try to figure out what it is to get them on board. What do we have to do to move them forward? And frankly, the easiest part for me with my training and experience is the surgery.
Mhm.
So you really have to understand some of the key things. So you say, what do we look at? Some of the basics are, how healthy is the patient?
Mhm.
Obviously, we want healthy patients. How easy is it to use the robot on the patient? We have some patients who are claustrophobic. They just can't handle being in closed confines.
Mhm.
So we then know, okay, we've got IV sedation, we have general anesthesia, we have oral sedation. So there's different ways to make the process of doing what we do best as comfortable as possible for the patients. So it's really looking at a holistic approach. Then you move on to some clinical things. Do they have other things that are going on as far as abscesses or things that really may be a factor in moving ahead with treatment? And rarely, I'd say 1 out of 200 patients may have something that we can't handle. We do a digital workflow. So we actually had one of the patients that we couldn't start initially. She had some loose teeth, and I don't know about where you guys grew up, but
Mhm.
in our neck of the woods, we did not use Gorilla Glue to hold loose teeth together,
Mhm.
but evidently that was a thing.
Wow.
And she had 7 years worth of Gorilla Glue in her mouth that was holding these lower front teeth together.
My
It was
gosh.
so uncomfortable for her. It actually shifted and moved her top teeth out of position.
Mm.
So in order to help her, we actually had to, there's no setting on your Trios intraoral scanner for Gorilla Glue.
I've actually never even heard of a situation like that. The Gorilla Glue one's new for me. That's crazy.
On paper, I guess, kudos to her for thinking outside the box, maybe.
That must
But,
have tasted nasty.
well, I guess you develop, you get the vanilla flavor.
you get a taste of the Gorilla Glue over time. Oh my
Yeah, yeah. So we had to actually take teeth out, let the gum heal just to see what we were dealing with. But most of the times, even when a patient forgets which end of a toothbrush to use, and they come in just looking bad,
Mhm.
all it means is that they've given up hope. They're
Mhm.
hopeless.
Mhm.
And imagine if you were to just walk their walk and sit in that seat in front of us and understand and be more empathetic, where you can understand dentist after dentist after dentist says, no, 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 this isn't possible. They judge them. You're a bad person. You've got missing teeth. There could be a whole host of things that occurred, whether it's depression, whether it's lack of job, opportunity, access.
Mhm.
Fear factor is not only a show, it's real in the dental office. So they have heightened fear factor to go into the dentist because of bad memories, you name it. So
Mhm.
we really try to look at the forward process of where they're going, not where they've been,
Mhm.
and really welcome them to a high level. The whole team genuinely saying, we are so happy you chose us. And
Mhm.
that's really the process of how we can do what we do so that there's fewer problems, fewer issues, and really just walking through those steps as far as getting them to the start line.
I
And that's
love
really the
that.
key.
I love
Yeah.
that. I mean, getting them
Yeah, I
from the
love
start
that.
line to the finish line. Yeah, absolutely. I feel like, with such a high volume of the implants that you've placed, 10,000, right? And 1,000 arches and using the Yomi robot. It's like, what are some common challenges that you've encountered, right, along the way, or that you currently face with what you're doing now? What are some common challenges and how are you addressing them?
So it's unique that you say that. I would say overwhelmingly, most of the arches that are done in this country, the full mouth reconstruction, what we call FFA, fixed full arch, they're terminal dentitions. There's patients with an emotional need. They have been struggling and suffering for many, many years. And then it's just a question of trying to find who and where they go to. Arguably, one of our missions for the past 4 years is really fine tuning the marriage between a digital workflow and a guided approach
Mm,
where it's specific for denture wearers.
mm,
So, denture wearers, with our process, it's a proprietary program called the Smoler Express, where they can hop on board the Smoler Express.
Okay.
Their smile is specifically expressly geared for them. And they could come in over lunch and leave with teeth for dinner.
That's crazy.
And the problem, like you said, our biggest challenge right now, there's 24 million denture wearers in this country. There's more people with a denture in this country than the population of Canada.
Mm-hmm.
And you would think there's a huge supply. I mean, even if we go gung-ho crazy and do 1,000 arches a month, 10,000 a year, there's more denture patients to help than will be in my career, even my life, my longevity.
Right.
So what happens is we really want to try to be able to find a way to help these patients. And one of the things that we're looking at now is recognizing who they are. A lot of these denture patients, think about this. They take their teeth out to eat.
Yeah. I mean, because their dentures just suck.
Right. And so here you have patients where they got rid of all the need for root canals, got rid of bad broken down teeth, and the denture was the piece de resistance. That was the crowning moment, pun intended, of their dental existence. And wow, look how nice they look. Well, the problem is that they don't function.
They want steak.
So, right. And they float around. So it's almost analogous to Henry Ford, where when he came up with the horseless carriage, when you talk to people back in the 1905 and say, how do you want to get from town to your house out in the farm? You know, what struggles do you have? They would say that they would want a faster horse because they had no concept of what a car was. Well, now you take these denture wearers who've been suffering for 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 years, and they have no idea that dental implants are a thing, are affordable, they can be done minimally invasively. So it becomes really unique struggle to help these patients who have no idea that they could have hope. So getting hope to the people who are hopeless, people that for decades were told that they didn't have enough bone. Do you know how many times a day someone says to me, well, Dr. Bruce, I don't have enough bone for dental implants.
Is it because they were told that by somebody who doesn't do zygos, pterygoids?
Or even do implants. So you have this person who's taking out teeth, and the patient will say, well, what about implants? They don't do implants. Oh, you don't have good bone for that. You need a denture. So in most industries, let's say in podcasts, in dental implant business, what ends up happening is there's a disease. And that disease is called stinking thinking. People just don't know what they don't know. And so they think they don't have enough bone. They think they're not good enough candidates. They were told, you know, 10 years ago by their nephew's babysitter's brother, oh yeah, it cost my auntie, $45,000 just for her lower teeth.
Wow.
I can't afford that.
Right.
So it's just ridiculous. All the things we have to kind of, it's like taking a machete to get through the truth. It's like we need a social truth here that we can find these patients and just help them without all the baggage that they bring with them. So it's great when they struggle, when they know about the process. There's basically two groups of denture patients out there. The ones who haven't done any research, and it's the same old, I just need tighter teeth or sharper teeth, as opposed to the other subset that are looking for a way to have it done. Right. And that's really where we're at right now.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Can you share a particularly memorable or interesting story from an experience you had with placing dental implants?
So it's interesting. A number of years ago, we had a woman come in. She was in her early 20s. And Julie was just a beautiful woman, young lady, until she smiled. And so getting her history, She struggled her whole life with getting dental care, having teeth that were strong. She had enamel dysplasia, so parts of her teeth were flaking off. And I said to her, so Julie, tell me a little bit about yourself. She says, well, I got through high school, really not much going on, never really dated. I said, well, why? You seem to be an attractive young lady. She says, and she smiles, she says, who would want to kiss me? I've got teeth like an ashtray. And she worked a dead-end job, working nights in a warehouse, stocking a warehouse, and basically she was a shut-in. She was so embarrassed, she was almost paralyzed by the fear of someone looking at her teeth. So her parents, her family members, they pooled their resources, and at an early age, we did a combination of teeth, implants, gum surgery, reconstruction, and that's when the magic started. So Julie quit her job, went back to school, started dating. She ended up falling in love, got married, started a family. She would come back once a year after she moved out of state, and she'd call us her dream team. Well, now, fast forward, her kids are grown. She came back in one time, and she says, Dr. Bruce, I really have to thank you. I said, yeah, you're welcome. No, you don't understand. I said, what do you mean? What you did for me, not only did it change my life, but it saves lives. I go, Julie, what are you talking about? Well, she went on to tell me that one of her kids is a paramedic. And he actually, the week before, went into a burning building and saved someone's life.
Wow.
Pulled this person out of a burning building, and she looked at me and she says, Dr. Bruce, without what you did for me, I wouldn't have a family. I wouldn't have a son. I wouldn't have a firefighter who pulled a woman from a fire and saved her life.
That's powerful.
And that just hit us all like a ton of bricks. It's like, oh my gosh, changing smiles can indeed save lives.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I feel like that's one of the main reasons why any dentist gets into dentistry, right? Is because they've seen situations where a patient's life has been completely altered and changed. And it allows them to have that confidence to go and even get a job sometimes, like some people can't get jobs because they show up for interviews and their teeth are so destroyed.
Jacked.
And they're like, I can't put you out in front of my store,
So it's interesting. One of the things that a lot of people had told me along this journey of the Smoler Express, because it's taken a lot of time, proof of concept, they said, Dr. Bruce, why are you spending so much time, effort, trademarking this process, getting it built out, when people with more missing teeth are lower on the socioeconomic ladder? They don't have the money for implants. They can't do all these things. And I said, well, you may be right, but what if you reverse it around? What if you give teeth to these people so now they can get that better job, they can get that promotion, live at a higher standard of living because of what we can do? And so that's a more powerful way to look at things, helping people live better, not just as far as how they function, but their interaction in society, their business, their wealth accumulation. It's just incredible when you just change your mindset and see so many more opportunities than the Debbie Downers, the doom and gloomers. No one likes a party pooper, and there's plenty, sadly, in dentistry.
Oh, absolutely. And I kind of feel like, so I want to address another topic real quick, which is a bit of a shift of gears for our last segment here. So let's say that there's a dentist who wants to get into your same position where they're able to help patients at the level that you're helping them. They're able to do all on X cases, right? Or even just simply start implants. What are some what are some key insights that you would share with another dentist looking to excel in that?
Well, it's funny. It seems like not a week goes by where someone doesn't send out an invitation for me to join their WhatsApp group. So it's like, oh my gosh, driving in my car, I can't turn off the notifications quick enough.
Uh-huh.
But you know, it's sort of how I set up my social activities
Sure.
with some of the KOLs and the interactions with colleagues around the world. I mean, I tend not to sleep that much for whatever reason. There could be a time where it's 4 a.m. and it's 10 o'clock in Israel or noon in Israel. And it's, I think, oh gosh, what time? I think 3 p.m. in Australia. And
Right.
so there's dentists in Australia with different Facebook groups or WhatsApp groups. So it's really a global phenomenon where people, dentists, colleagues, want to learn more. They have a thirst for getting to that next level. And I would say, arguably, once you're at the fixable arch level and you're getting into it, and you've learned how to avoid some of the initial pitfalls, you really become dedicated to do more and more at a higher and higher level. So there's lots of opportunities to learn. Having a mentor growing through my career was very influential
Mhm.
and impactful. So I like to try to give back
Mhm.
so people can actually, here's the sad thing. Some people just don't know that there's alternatives.
Mm.
They could spend $1,500 to $7,000 for a type of guide, a surgical guide.
Mhm.
And no one is telling them alternatives. Not everybody knows about the Yomi robotic device to be able to do things more precisely.
Mhm.
So here they are spending an inordinate amount of money. Usually they're price conscious, so they have to keep the price at a certain level. And if their costs are higher and higher and they're keeping the price the same because they feel they have to
Mm.
keep it at a certain point, they have no profit left to do
Mhm.
things properly.
Mhm.
And that creates a strain and drain on their business, their organization. So we actually have a website. It's a landing page called roboticdentalarm.com.
Mhm.
And it's really geared for helping colleagues figure out how they best can navigate the guided world of implant dentistry.
Okay.
People will learn how to place singles and do it freehand. Some people refer to that as brain guided instead of guided, which has to be done.
Mhm.
And it's a process where you could feel more comfortable with your surgical skills. There's plenty of programs out there. And as
Okay.
I was talking to a colleague the other day, there's no dental school for the most part that's teaching dental implants.
Right.
It's all advanced training.
Mhm.
So I think the utilization in this country, I think it's upwards of 40 to 60% of general dentists are placing some type of implant reconstruction.
Mhm.
Very few are at the high levels as far as fixed full arch.
Right.
So it's really looking at what fits your practice. You have to walk before you can run.
Mhm.
As the saying goes, it's not ready, fire, aim. There's a sequence, there's a cycle of action. So you have to have your team involved because let's say your team doesn't like surgery. It may scare them. So the idea of going from maybe onesies and twosies as far as placing one single implant, maybe once every other month, to wanting to do full mouth and flaps, oh my God, that'll scare a lot of teammates. So
Right.
what you have to do is have a meeting of the minds with your team, understand where your direction needs to go.
Mm.
So a number of years ago, I retired from general dentistry.
Mhm.
Basically, my whole team understands how and why these things occur. And you have to set up a program, a path. So what you want to do for the first quarter, the second quarter, set metrics, targets, so you can then become an implantologist.
Mm.
So we basically have it seems like the only things I do 95% of the time are place implants and adjust bites because where you don't have AFTA's expanded function dental assistants.
Right.
So I'm the one adjusting the bites. A number of years ago, I gave a program how to double the number of implants you do in
Okay.
a month.
Mhm.
And part of that was understanding the process,
Mhm.
what you have to give up in order to be what you want.
Mhm.
So if you want to be doing more implants and if you want to be doing them at a high level, you can't do everything. And who are you known as?
Mhm.
When you have a patient who's potentially spending a lot of money in your office, Are you going to have these little kids running around and all over the place because you also do sealants on little kids
Right.
and space maintainers and sealants and, so you really have to take a step back and say, these are the things that I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
How do I incorporate that into my existing team?
Mm-hmm.
And what do they need to do to believe in the technology,
Mm-hmm.
believe in my skills and ability, and showcase how you're helping patients?
Mm.
Because if you have the wrong people in the wrong chairs, they're going to look and say, oh my God, this person just paid $20,000.
Mm-hmm.
I would never do that. I don't have that. Oh, how could we, it blows them away. And sometimes that's the dentist.
Right.
Where the dentist doesn't understand if you're working with a team or colleagues. So you really have to plot out your plan.
Okay.
Yeah, I said the word plan. You got to know the direction you're going in order to know that you're on target.
Mm-hmm.
So if it's a 1 year, 2 years, I would say it would take a good 2 to 3 years of picking the courses and the training, finding a mentor that you could either shadow, do treatment over the shoulder. For the first year or two, you're going to be losing money because you're learning.
Right.
You're not going to be at a high enough volume or you're high enough speed to make money. Money should never lead; it should always follow.
Mm-hmm.
So do what sets your sail full. Find your passion, find your why, what gets you up in the morning,
Mm-hmm.
and then figure out the people around you that can help support you on that journey.
Right. I mean, how many arches would you say that a general dentist needs to place until they're considered, competent for the majority of cases?
That's a great question. And I actually do some work as an expert witness.
Yeah.
And so I was defending a colleague, and that was the very question. There was an issue with the first in practice case that he did. It was an upper arch, and some things didn't go right as far as the patient felt. And the plaintiff's attorney says, well, how many arches do you need to place to be competent? I said, that's an immaterial question. I said, all a full arch is a bunch of single implants. So if you know how to place single implants, technically you just have to put 4 or 5 or 6 single implants together to be a full arch.
There you go.
I was being slightly facetious, of course, but the fact remains is that any type of comprehensive program is going to teach you the prosthetics, teach you the ability to lay a flap conveniently, easily, effectively. If I had to place a number, 20, I'd say,
Okay.
or 40 arches,
Sure.
because each one can be unique. What happens if you place 39 you've performed 39 arches, but on the 40th one you have a bad bleed, and it's like, oh,
Yeah.
what do I do?
Yeah.
It's bleeding, and what do I do? So you could get all the experience you want from one case, provided you have a mentor there to show you how to manage everything, and everything else is downhill.
Yeah.
So you really have to kind of dig a little bit deeper. You can't necessarily quantify it. You can qualify it by saying you got to learn. You got to get some experience.
Right.
Experience is just doing things over time and getting the reps in.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's just getting those cases that you figure out how to place implants in certain areas that you have to be more inventive of. So it's
Right.
not just straight or axial, they're tilted, eventually learning pterygoid, zygomatic, transsinus, transnasal, all different types of types of implants.
Yeah.
So there's, and I'm even learning more. So
Sure.
it's really exciting just seeing how things can develop over time, more so now than ever before, because technology, whether it's with a robot, whether it's improved thread design on implants, whether it's an implant without abutments, no multi-unit abutments with the TRI system,
Yeah.
so many different things that allow you to excel and help the patients live better. So you can always send me an email, Dr. Bruce, DRBRUCE at smolersmiles.com. Real easy to find me. You just have to Google my name, and you'll find me on YouTube, WhatsApp, Instagram, Pinterest, Hinge. No, not Hinge.
I'm gonna.
This is a safe
it's
zone,
a
right?
safe space. Yeah, I was gonna say.
Okay. Truth be told, it's unhinged, not hinged, but
unhinged. Yeah.
So Facebook Messenger. Usually I do not respond to smoke signals or Ouija boards, but
I would hope not.
For the most part, it's pretty easy to find me.
Okay. Thank you so very much for joining us today, Dr. Smoler. We have really enjoyed all of the stuff that you've shared. We've learned a lot, and I know that others will as well once they hear all these great stories that you've had to share. Thank you so much. And, I just wanted to thank everyone else for joining us today, for tuning into the Revolution Dentistry podcast. If you're finding value here, make sure to hit subscribe on Dr. Smoler's YouTube channel. All right. So that you never miss an episode. We're here every week to help you grow. We'll see you next time. Thank you.
Awesome. Take care, guys.